Today, I ask for your support for House Bill 4, a bill that would ensure that our post-secondary system in Kentucky is held accountable to dismantle the failed and misguided DEI bureaucracies that have made our colleges more divided, more expensive, and less tolerant. If education is to be the great equalizer in the Commonwealth, the opportunity to obtain a college degree in our state must be equally available and affordable to all. House Bill 4 would allow our universities and colleges to return to their primary focus of providing Kentucky students with excellence in academic instruction in an environment that fosters critical thinking through constructive dialogue.
Oh, wow. An environment that fosters critical thinking through constructive dialogue is really a noble goal. It's a great goal. In fact, I think really this should be played to all of our legislators because it's not just a noble goal for education, it's a great goal for our government. In engaging in constructive dialogue with the people who are impacted by the bills seems like an excellent idea. And we can see that Jennifer and Committee Chair James Tipton are devoted to that goal, this constructive dialogue and critical thinking. By the way in which they handled this diversity, equity, and inclusion bill, which Jennifer Decker has so eloquently said needs to be in place. And what they have done to foster this critical thinking through constructive dialogue is that they've given Jennifer and a staunch anti-DEI advocate, Michael Frazier, who is also a libertarian and believes government shouldn't do anything and shouldn't exist. They have given them 45 minutes to make their point on this bill, which already exists and should, speak for itself, you would hope. And they give 10 minutes to people who are against this bill or have issues with this bill. So that is the constructive dialogue we're having here. What makes this even worse, though, is that at the end of this meeting, those 4 people that got to speak were all white males. Not that there's any problem with white males standing up and defending this. Obviously, I'm here talking to you, but there were other voices in that room that wanted to be heard, including women of color, white women. They were waiting to be heard, wanting to be heard, and they were not. So they had to take it up with James Tipton, the chair of the committee, after the meeting. And let's see how that constructive dialogue worked out. Knowing that these people have been ignored, they had to chase him down in the hallway to actually be heard after the bill had passed committee. So here's our constructive dialogue after it presumably could have done some good.
Allow any of us to testify today. Do you know how many students were in that room? Then why was House Bill 4 pulled out of committee on Friday, the same day, I might add, that Kentucky, on every single public institution, every single public university, held a demonstration in support of DEI the same day. Last Friday, the same day, y'all pulled this bill out of the chamber to the House for its first reading in an intentional and obvious move to limit deliberations and public comment on this bill. I can't. It is so hard. Oh my God, I'm so frustrated.
Are you familiar with the Harvard Supreme Court case?
That's not.
Okay, maybe the best place to have a constructive dialogue is not outside a committee meeting where the bill has already gone through, you've not been given an opportunity to speak, and basically now you're trying to get everything you want to say targeted to the head of this committee in the short period of time he's probably going to be there. So I've been there, tempers flare, these guys don't want to hear it, and we've got James Tipton here who decides to interject here with his point about the Harvard decision. And that's the problem here. This bill, I like to think that I have some critical thinking skills. I actually went and read the bill, which I think is probably more than this crew did. They just heard DEI, we're going to get rid of it. Okay, good, I'm on board. This bill, and I've got a copy of it pulled up, so forgive me for reading to you from it, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is how it defines it. It means a policy, practice, procedure designed or implemented to promote or provide differential treatment or benefits to individuals on the basis of religion, race, sex, color, or national origin, including but not limited to, and this is where the sticking point is, including but not limited to any such policy, practice, or procedure related to employment, employee recruitment, employee hiring, employee promotion, contracts, contract renewal, student recruitment, student admission, student housing, financial assistance, and scholarship awards. So the only thing we have here that addresses that Harvard decision is admission, student admission. That is one element of this. But when you're talking about things like student recruitment, so are you saying that I can't go to, let's say, an all-girls school, all-girls Catholic school, and recruit more kids to programs that we'd like to see more women apply to? That would seem to be banned here. If we go to one of the academies that's devoted to teaching from a black perspective and providing some more materials and information for students who are black, like we have in Louisville and Lexington, if we go there and recruit, is that a violation of this law? It would seem to be. We're not saying, hey, you're getting in. We're saying, hey, we'd like you to come and apply. Those are two different things. The including but not limited to, I mean, that is so wide open. Could we say that a black student union is part of this? Could we say that a Jewish student union or an Asian student union, which are all offices that existed way before anybody ever uttered the words DEI at my school? And this was, I graduated in '93, so it's been a while. So are those all, do they all fall in this bound? So we want to talk about critical thinking. We want to talk about fostering constructive dialogue. Here comes James Tipton, and he throws this Harvard decision, which again is a narrow decision that this bill targets far more than admissions. He brings that up.
Are you familiar with the Harvard Supreme Court case?
That's not the same thing.
This is not.
That
You
is
are
not the same
making
thing.
an
and you know so.
insane
Are you familiar
overreach.
with the Attorney General opinion that was issued a year ago?
Are you familiar with the fact that every single student in Kentucky that came to the day of DEI, which was over 1,000, by the way, across the Commonwealth, Murray State, Morehead State, Kentucky State, Western Kentucky, Northern Kentucky,
Every
Eastern Kentucky,
public
University of
university
Kentucky,
in Kentucky.
University of Louisville, we all had demonstrations
pulled back the
in
phrases
support
out of
of DEI. All of us. We stand united, 8 universities and one voice against House Bill 4. And you are intentionally, you're not letting us get our voices in. You're moving through the legislative process so fast. You waited until last minute. Y'all could have been working on this forever. You waited until last minute to pull this so that now you get to shove it through the end of this week.
House Bill 4 has been worked on before session and the entire
And it's still
session
sloppy.
up till last night.
Yeah, so why are we only hearing it for the first time right now? Why are we only hearing it in committee right now?
I will also
Because the
say,
bill was not ready to be heard.
You just said we were working on it for years. Why isn't it ready?
Because we have listened to people.
Have you listened to me?
have you listened to students? Have you listened to students and not Michael Frazier? Because he was a student in the university
You
here.
know who I represent?
Who?
I represent 40,000 constituents in the House. And I will guarantee you, they are overwhelmingly in support of this bill.
These women point out an excellent point here, that there is no transparency into our processes. There is no time to respond. These things happen behind closed doors. They get handed off to behind the scenes. They're written by people who will never know who authored these bills, whether they came from some Washington think tank or some local political wonk. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. And our input into the process, these people who are representatives of all, not just a majority, they're representatives of all. There's no way to know that they're listening. There's no way to get our inputs heard. This is all done without any transparency whatsoever. It's rammed through a committee, as so often happens, like here, and then rammed through on the floor. And, oh, we didn't hear anything. Well, yeah, you didn't engage anybody. That's why I didn't hear anything. And the final point here is that James Tipton says, my constituency, 40,000 people, I think is the number he mentions, overwhelmingly support this. Truth is, you can't prove him wrong. There is no way to get that data. There's no way to get emails to him. There's no way to get a count of how many calls came in per con. That is all restricted from our view, and it shouldn't be. It should be open. It's subject to the same open records laws that my school board is subject to. I can get their emails if I need to. They don't want transparency. So he says 40,000. It could be 4. I truly doubt that an overwhelming number of people from his community have spoken out about DEI. I'm sure the people that he runs with and the people that have his ear have, but I would imagine most people are too busy with pretty much anything to pay attention to what's going on in the world. Even us Democrats, there are a lot of people who are just like, don't know what's going on. So take it with a grain of salt.
Do they know what's going on? Do they know that it's going to take more access away?
I think do you all have any idea how many times I heard people say the sky's going to fall? The sky never falls.
Oh yeah, so it'll just be okay. Yeah, we'll just go back to our universities that are going to be defunded, and everything will just be okay. Yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks.
The sky doesn't fall.
The sky doesn't fall when you're white. The sky doesn't fall when you're straight. The sky doesn't fall when you aren't affected by this.
What about the white student from a hollering his parents?
They actually have scholarships for that. That's
Yeah.
part of DEI.
Yeah,
the
actually,
Appalachian.
I
She's
can tell you a
recipient of
story
that,
about
actually.
one of those people. I can tell you a story about three of those people. 3 of those people who are the only 3 people at the University of Louisville to receive Fulbright UK Summer Institutes, and I am one of them.
That's why
It's one of the best scholarships. Exactly. And
So
I agree.
listen to
And I
us
will
and
tell you,
focus on
in those
student
interviews for Fulbright, in those interviews, the most thing they want to know is that we have cultural competencies to communicate across diverse backgrounds, because that means we'll get the most out of those experiences. Every single one of us 3 students who have gotten this agree that that has been most beneficial in helping us get that scholarship, and that is an experience that we only got because we went to a university that supports DEI programs where we could learn from diverse students of different backgrounds
Are
and
you all
gain more understanding
aware
of the
of
world.
the change in legislation in May 24 in Senate Bill 191 on the performance funding model for universities? Previously, the only input on that was 3%. We raised it to 8% to send the message to our universities: you have to invest in these low-income students and get them in school and get them their education.
It's interesting that Senator Tipton points out Senate Bill 191 here, because the original bill filed by a Republican to help address funding issues included several references to trying to help minority students. It appears several times in the bill. And when the bill finally went through all the machinations on the Senate, House, and the floor, it came out with some changes. And those changes primarily were removing the word minority from the bill and also adding a provision that there would be no race-based metrics in the bill. What he forgot to point out here is that that final bill, those changes came from Representative James Tipton.
How could you support such a sloppy piece of legislation that's not even, these ideas aren't even Decker's, they're not even hers. They come out of ALEC, they come out of the Goldwater Institute, they come out of the Heritage Foundation, and anything else. They come out of everywhere else but from our mouths as Kentucky students, as citizens, as taxpayers.
Have you spoken to Kentucky students? Or is this your first time?
I've talked to a lot of students.
Have you talked about this?
I've got an intern at the University of Louisville. I talk to her 2 days a week.
Yeah,
Have you asked her
cool.
about this?
I talk to a lot of. I have children that have people friends that go to college. I'm in contact with a lot.
For House Bill
Some of my best friends are students.
424, you claim that you spoke to officials from universities, and apparently that was a lie.
That is absolutely not right.
On House Bill, also on House Bill 424, in your testimony up there, you were like, there's a faculty member there's a program that exists and we're still paying this faculty member and nobody's enrolled. And I approached you after the committee meeting and I was like, which program, which university? And you couldn't give me a confident answer. You have no idea what you're talking about. You are so disconnected from reality and I am done talking to you. This is ridiculous.
Thank you, ma'am, for your conversation. You know, we live in a country where we're free to have.
But y'all are trying to take it away.
All
So,
right, y'all have a
bye.
blessed day.
So are we fostering critical thinking through constructive dialogue here? I would argue that we are not. It is clear that this bill is done. It is through committee. We have 4 women who represent other students and the opinions of students that were not heard. And those students were not heard when it mattered. So the time for constructive dialogue is done. And I think when you see the way these women are reacting, their frustration, their anger, walking away, they know it's done. They know that this is not constructive because it's leading nowhere, because James Tipton is just running out the clock here. James Tipton is pointing to, facts that aren't facts, as the woman that walked away says. I asked you for proof of what you said and you couldn't provide it to me. That's all he has here. He points to a bill without saying that he removed the word minority from it from last year. That's certainly, I doubt he remembers bill numbers unless they're etched into his brain. So how would these young women know to speak to that? They're speaking about this bill, which is a totally separate bill. So I don't think we're having constructive dialogue here. And I think when you say to someone that, yes, we've considered all viewpoints. Well, who? Students. Well, who? Well, I've got an intern that goes to college. Well, is that intern, did he or she, did they pick you out of a hat? Or do they know your politics? Do they agree with your politics? Are they a group that may be in a minority in a university? These are questions that would be great to know. And really, if you're a critical thinker, you may put in your head that, oh, maybe that's not the opinion I need to get here. And maybe one opinion is not representative of the whole. And also with his constituency. I mean, this is something he is in favor of this bill. His home county of Spencer County is 95.6% white. So is that reflective of Kentucky as a whole? No, it's not. It's certainly not reflective of our cities. And I would be willing to bet that Spencer County is also predominantly Christian, predominantly evangelical Christian. And those are viewpoints that are not necessarily representative of the whole of a university community. And DEI is not just about hiring or admitting students. If you want to tackle those because you think it's unconstitutional, you think the Harvard decision supports that, fine. That's in the bill. But you have basically said any actions to consider, to train, to do anything to help people understand, to help people who are in a minority do better is pretty much off limits here, because this bill is so poorly worded, so generous in scope of what falls under it, that I don't think it's going to be, everybody's going to be afraid. It's either going to get tons of legal challenges, which I hope it does, because let's decide on the constitutionality. That's not something that somebody like Jennifer Decker or James Tipton can decide on. Or we're going to see universities just say, okay, we're closing up shop for everything that we have that will help students because we're afraid we're going to be defunded. It's not about doing what's right. It's about the money. It's always about the money. It's what drives James Tipton. It's what drives Jennifer Decker. Most of the people that aren't driven by the money or the power wind up leaving Frankfurt because they see it's a hopeless place to get anything done. They see there is no constructive dialogue. They see there's no critical thinking. It's what's been handed to me. As again is pointed out here, this bill is handed to them by someone else. We don't know who. We can guess, because there's shell bills that exist for all different states. But this is not what Jennifer Decker claims she wants for universities and should be part of our political scene. This is not a constructive dialogue. None of this bill has been. This is not, doesn't involve critical thinking. But it's just watching what happens in our committees, on the floor, and in the hallways is truly, truly just disheartening. And I hope that these young students don't leave the state, which happens a lot, and that they get active, and maybe they're the ones who are getting the opinions of students when they reach the floor, and they're the senators and they're the representatives, because I think that's what's going to have to happen to change Kentucky.